Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to compare a $300 cashmere sweater with a $75 cashmere sweater to see if I can tell the difference and ultimately if it's worth spending more for this wardrobe piece. So let's get started. So what is cashmere? Cashmere is the soft undercoat of cashmere goats, named because they originated from Kashmir, but now they're found in a couple different places. But the common denominator between all of them is that they live in very, very cold environments. So during the cold season, they grow protective fur. The outer coat is pretty coarse, but still protects them. The undercoat is really, really soft and incredibly warm. And that's what's typically used for clothing goods, things like sweaters, hats, scarves, and anything that you find marketed to wear. It feels really nice on the skin. So to understand why cashmere is so expensive, it's important to understand that cashmere is only harvested once a year in the spring. The goats begin to naturally shed their fur, and that's when it needs to be collected. And the best way to collect it in order to ensure the fibers stay intact and as long and as soft as possible is to hand comb them, which, as you can imagine, takes a long time. And then of course we add in elements of environment conservation and ensuring that the goats are properly tended to and making sure that they're not depleting the environments that they're eating off of, and then a variety of other things when it comes to the actual production of the cashmere all contribute to making the price higher. So as an easy way to understand all of these factors, we break cashmere into three basic grades: A, B, and C. A is the best, C is the worst, and those are dependent on how it's been collected, how it's been processed, the overall softness, and the length of the fibers. The longer the fiber, the better. Not only will it last longer in your closet, but it will also pill less and just look better for longer. So you won't need to constantly replenish a piece. So a good way to check this, specifically if you're buying something maybe secondhand or vintage, is to stretch the cashmere. It should bounce back to its original shape. It shouldn't automatically lose its shape. You shouldn't end up with any marks or funny bumps. And ultimately, it should be really soft when you touch it. That should be the biggest giveaway. And specifically when you rub it against maybe your cheek or a part of your body that's really delicate, like the inside of your wrist, it shouldn't be scratchy at all. It should be very, very comfortable on the skin. So now let's compare the two sweaters that I've selected today. So one of them is $75 and the other is $300. And I didn't purposefully select one that was worse quality than another, and despite the price, I tried to make them as apples to apples as possible. So both of them take into consideration proper treatment of the goats. Both of them consider environmental consciousness when herding the goats and allowing them places to roam and not over roaming the land. And then also the color is very similar, the overall silhouette is very similar, and the production claims are comparable. So specifically when it comes to the overall softness, the length of the fibers, and the thinness of the fibers. And I'm going to compare them, but not reveal the price of either until the very end. So let's look at them side by side first, and we'll start with the collar. So as you can see, the collar is very similar on each of these sweaters. It's a very neat, very classic, a very timeless style of sweater with very detailed stitching right under that. Both of them are very well done when it comes to the overall silhouette of it and how it's been connected to the overall sweater. There isn't aggressive buckling and no stitching has come undone on either of them. And then if we move down to the shoulder seams, both of them are very beautiful, very even, very clean. One of them is slightly smaller than the other, as you can see, but for the most part, they look almost identical. And moving down the sleeve, the consistency continues down to the wrist, where they both have beautiful ribbing at the wrist, the only difference being that one of them is slightly more narrow than the other one. And then throughout the silhouette of the sweater, it's pretty straight on both of them, but one of them tapers ever so slightly at the waist. So now let's compare how each of them wore throughout my experiment. So I wore them equal amount of times throughout the winter, and I washed each of them once and dried each of them once. I will link my video here about how I tend to my cashmere, because I hand wash and air dry everything. So I did that for each of these as gently as possible to make sure they stayed intact. And neither of them lost their shape as a result of washing them. I will say the only thing I noticed was one of them had more wrinkling as it air dried, so I had to steam it a little bit more. The other one had virtually no wrinkling. And then also, as I was wearing them, one of them had a little bit of pilling, nothing excessive, but a little bit, and the other one had no pilling. Pilling comes as a result of general friction and wearing the sweater, and I was very surprised that I didn't have any, because I always experience at least a little bit of pilling. So I would say when it comes to the overall wearing, they wore very, very similarly, and the pilling and slight wrinkling was the only difference that I noticed between the two of them. So which is which, and which do I recommend? If we look at them side by side again, this is the $75 and this is the $300 sweater. When it comes to looks alone, they're virtually identical. That was my intention, and I think that they're very, very comparable. The only distinguishing factor that I found between each of them was how they wore and how they washed. And based on that, my recommendation is that if you know you love cashmere sweaters, it's something you wear all the time, you have the ability to spend $300 on a cashmere sweater, it's a lot of money, then I do think it's worth it. I think it will wear better, and I think it will last a little bit longer in my overall closet. And then also, I will also say that if you, like I recommend a lot, if you know that you love something, you know that you wear it a lot, and you would like to buy the highest quality possible, don't hesitate to check secondhand and vintage. Vintage sweaters were made so beautifully and oftentimes of a higher quality than you can find now due to mass production and overall general consumption. So you can find something at a very, very beautiful quality at a very reasonable price point. And then also, secondhand shopping is a beautiful way to find something like this $300 sweater at a much lower price point and close the gap between constantly producing new goods. Oftentimes, things secondhand haven't been worn a lot. They've been worn maybe once or twice or never. I've bought things secondhand that have the tags still on and have never been worn, and they're at a fraction of the price. So you may be able to find a $300 sweater with beautiful construction and quality at a price point closer to the $75 sweater. So I hope that you liked this. I loved making this. I really like comparing things like this. And I think when building your wardrobe, it's important to know the foundational basics of what makes something great so that you can make the best choice possible for you, your individual budget, and your wardrobe goals. So if you liked this, let me know. I think I'll make more because I really loved it, but definitely let me know if you notice a difference between more expensive and less expensive things, and if there's anything in particular you'd like me to compare. And like always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next one. Have a great day.